That Don't Sound Right is a podcast about talking the way we did before the internet, when you could not prove anyone right or wrong.
All the expertise was contained in the people involved with the conversation. I'm Peter.
I'm Cecil, and I hope you enjoy our conversations. And as you listen, if you find yourself silently saying, "That don't sound right," send us a comment. You're one of us. My childhood was much more like the kids on Stranger Things. Not the Demogorgon part, but just the riding bikes around, being at other people's houses, the suburban part of that show.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of That Don't Sound Right, a podcast about talking. We're your co-hosts. I'm Peter Billman.
I'm Cecil Davis.
And we're just trying to have a conversation without Google or fact-checking each other. We talk about some of our own experiences, some things we've heard, some things we've observed. Sometimes it's just stories. And they usually have the other guy saying, "That don't sound right."
At some point in the conversation, one of us says, "That don't sound right." Or both of us say that don't sound right.
So something's going to happen tonight, it seems like. You were wanting to tell me something about some structures or something you used to build as a kid.
Yeah. And so in North Carolina is a tobacco state. And so you would hang tobacco. Now, there's got to be a disclaimer here. I grew up in Cary. I grew up in the quintessential suburban neighborhood. Okay?
Yeah.
Latchkey kid in the 80s. I did not grow up on a farm.
You do have this persona, though.
What's that?
That you did grow up on a farm.
I think it's because I talk about my grandparents' farm.
Yeah.
But I did not grow up on a farm.
Because I have this view of you that you have just spent your life on a farm.
No.
Driving tractors.
No.
Waking up early in the morning.
Oh, no.
Slaughtering chickens and cows.
No.
And being got on by your dad because you didn't do your chores on the farm.
No.
And this is not it.
Right. And so that's why I wanted to just make sure.
This is so disappointing.
I did not want to. I want to make sure I am not claiming anything that is not my own. I grew up in the suburbs. My childhood was much more like the kids on Stranger Things. Not the Demogorgon part, but just the riding bikes around, being at other people's houses, the suburban part of that show.
Yeah.
That in the 80s. The mall.
I'm crushed.
Yeah. So in Cary, we would ride our bikes to the mall or ride our bikes to the to the movie theater.
All without helmets.
Without helmets.
All right.
Living on a cul-de-sac. So I do not want to.
Yeah. Thanks for clearing that up, because I really do have this view of you that
no.
You're just always wearing overalls and.
No, I grew up. I grew up in the classic suburban area. I mean, Cary was a bedroom community.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for the Research Triangle Park, and when IBM came, it blew up.
Right.
And it was a commuter neighborhood. Everybody would drive into the park or wherever they went and come home at night.
Subdivision after subdivision, right?
Yes. So I need to dispel that I am laying claim to anything that is not mine.
Was there at least a farm or a field in your backyard?
At different times we did. When we lived in Rocky Mount, there was a big field in our backyard.
Okay.
And in Cary, we had this huge area of woods that we had access to.
All right.
And so we could run around in the woods, which will come into this podcast at some point.
So what did you do?
But tobacco farms, before they went to what they call bulk barns, these tobacco barns, you had tobacco sticks. And it was just a stick maybe 5 feet long, maybe, or 6 feet long, and maybe half inch by half inch.
Half inch by
square. Maybe a little bigger than that. Maybe an inch by inch.
So they're not round, they're square.
They're square, almost like a baluster on just a little thinner than a baluster on a deck.
All right.
And so you'd have just hundreds of these things laying next to the tobacco barn, and what people would use them for. And again, I did not Christy cropped tobacco. I did not.
All right.
Christy grew up.
So Christy, your wife, is really the farmer of the couple.
Well, she grew up in a smaller town, but she worked in tobacco fields.
Okay.
I did not.
She worked in the tobacco fields.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll need to get her out here.
Yeah, but I did not.
Okay.
But they had just hundreds of these tobacco sticks laying next to barns. And from what my dad would tell me, what they would do is when they would harvest tobacco, you would tie a bunch of the leaves together, and then it would drape over the stick, and you'd get a bunch of the leaves on the stick, and then you would hang it in the tobacco barn.
Right.
And the heat from the heaters would cure the tobacco.
Right. I've seen these. They'd have a little furnace.
Yeah.
They would burn wood to keep the heat in there, and then the sides kind of have slats that opened up to let the air flow through, so you wouldn't get mold on your tobacco. And so you would line the tobacco up on these rafters going up into the barn, and the heat would go up through there and cure the tobacco. Okay, all right.
But when you weren't hanging tobacco on it, there was hundreds of these sticks laying there.
Sure.
Which my cousins and I put to good use. And so I'm going to show you a picture just so you can get an idea of this. This is more of a playpen than a tobacco stick house. But you can see that stretcher made out of, I'm showing you a picture.
Oh, yeah, there we go. There's a picture.
Yeah, it's just a square of tobacco sticks laid on top of each other.
Log cabin.
Like a log cabin.
Right.
And so you would stack these sticks in a log cabin style. Then you would make a little, like a pen that you could play in.
Right.
But as we got older and more creative, especially my cousins were extremely talented at this.
All right.
We could build those things up 2 or 3 stories, not 30 feet, but levels, 2 or 3 levels.
All right.
And so you start with
the multi-level stick forts.
Yeah. So when we were at my grandparents' farm, and all these tobacco sticks were available to us, so you'd start stacking them, and it would be big enough for us to sit in there.
So let's back up. Where are the sticks coming from again? So this is your grandparents?
My grandparents' tobacco farm.
They had a tobacco farm.
Yes.
So this is your exposure to the farm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're down there, and there's hundreds of these sticks next to the tobacco barn, and so you would get them all out, and you would start laying them like a log cabin, and then you would get in there. But then you thought, you know what, we could put a roof on this.
Sure.
So we built it up high enough, and you put a roof on it. Well, then
what's the roof made out of?
The tobacco
More
sticks.
sticks.
Right.
So you just put a layer of sticks.
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
All right.
But then you think, well, now we've got another level. We can create an opening, not make the whole floor out of sticks, but make a part of it open. And now you can go up on top of the roof.
Okay.
And then you start building again. You build another level. You start laying your sticks.
Boy, this will sound pretty wobbly.
Yeah, well, it can once it starts getting bigger for 2 reasons. Because now the only way you can get inside the structure is if you push maybe 5 or 6 of the sticks in, and it creates a spot where you can go down.
Oh, yeah, down.
I see. And then once you get in the structure, you go up again, and you do that, and then you create openings as you go up. And so once you're in the structure, you're in. There's no way out. There's no windows or doors or anything like that. And then the higher up you get, of course, the more wobbly, because these sticks they're not precision cut sticks.
Right. Well, they look like branches.
Right. Well, the ones I showed you that was not the true tobacco, that was a mix.
So these are more like...
Yeah, these are cut sticks. They're all uniform length typically and relatively uniform size, but still, they've worn out there for a long time.
Did you get any tobacco stains, tannins on your hands?
I've never thought about that. I'm sure we did.
Did you reek of tobacco?
No.
No.
Did you could smell it. Yeah, you can smell them sometimes.
What did it smell like? Did it smell good, or was it?
Yeah, you smell it. Yeah, you could smell the tobacco in the barn too.
Okay.
But you would, so the higher up this went, because you had pushed those 5 or 6 sticks in, you now inherently had a fairly unstable structure because your base wasn't square anymore.
Right.
Yeah, your base was kind of wobbly.
So tell me, how old are you guys when you're doing this?
I remember doing this.
17, 18?
No.
With your cinnamon toothpaste?
Well, that picture of me, that picture of me, I'm probably 3 years old. But I mean, probably as soon as any of us could stack sticks together, we started stacking.
If anyone's listening to this for the first time, 2 episodes ago, we talked about cinnamon. No, 3 episodes ago, we talked about cinnamon sticks, and that was my allusion to that.
So we would build these up, and I can't remember exactly, but I think we had one of those claps on us one time.
I would think you would remember that.
I just vaguely remember. I don't know if I blocked it from my mind, but I think we had one build up 3 or 4 levels, if not higher, and it went over with us in it, or with some of us in it. I don't know who was in it.
So who all participated in these
just any of the cousins that happened to be around on the day you were building one. But yeah, I think one went over. I'm sure any of my brother, any of my cousins listening will somebody will recall whether, or they might even have a picture of the big one that got built, because it was. I remember one going up like 3 or 4 or more levels.
So yeah, what's the tallest you feel like you made?
I think the tallest was maybe 4 levels.
4 levels?
Yeah, maybe.
Including
3.
the ground level.
Including the ground level.
1, 2, 3, 4, and a roof.
Well, and then you wouldn't have a roof on the top, because then it would be like a fort. You could go up on the top one, you leave it open, and then you could see off. Okay. If anybody was attacking your fort.
You could survey the North 40.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to do interject right now our sponsor, not our sponsor. I call it a sponsor every time. Wonderfully Made Designs is a small business specializing in custom-made T-shirts and decals. Contact Casey on Facebook at Wonderfully Made Designs 139.14.
The numbers matter. Just remember, the numbers matter.
It's Wonderfully Made Designs 13914. Use code TDSR10 for a 10% discount off your first order.
Cecil, we have our first coupon code.
That makes us a very legitimate.
At least 3 of us think we're legitimate now.
Yeah, that's right. So we were talking about building structures, and you probably did the same. I mean, we would build clubhouses.
Yeah, but nothing like this. I guess
this is like having Lincoln like adult Lincoln logs.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I don't think we've ever. All our stuff was ground level. We usually stayed on the ground, or we would go underground. Sometimes you'd find kind of a natural ditch, and then you just put a roof on it,
right? Yeah,
and then cover it with leaves,
yep.
And then you kind of hide out in there.
Yeah. Or so we'd have like caves, and like you have a hedge or something, you could get behind it. And build a clubhouse.
That's right.
So my neighbor's little boy, he's got a hedge.
Your neighbor right now.
Right now. Their little boy's got one that's kind of walled out behind the hedge, and he calls it the Bat Cave.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, or you'd find a bunch of scrap wood back in the woods, and you would build some kind of makeshift lean-to or teepee kind of structure or whatever.
Yeah, 4 stories, though. I mean, that's pretty tall.
It was pretty tall.
That is pretty tall.
And it was pretty teetery, too.
Help me understand, how big of square are we talking here?
It's probably 5 by 5.
All right, that's pretty big. That's a lot of sticks.
That's a lot of sticks.
And when that thing came crashing down, clearly no one's gotten it. Was this also the kind of the time when you're building rafts out of milk jugs?
Milk jugs, yeah. I don't remember anybody getting permanently hurt.
No.
I mean, but any of those kind of structures we built as kids in the woods had some. So even if it was on the ground, there was some danger to it. Because there was probably nails just nailed through things and sticking out in all ways.
So I was trying to think of some modern day structures we as adults build that people look at and say, huh.
What is that?
What is that? What were they thinking?
Yeah.
One of the things I think of are deer hunting blinds.
Well, they've gotten more and more complex.
They can be very sophisticated, but the simplest, most rudimentary kind, are just maybe a couple pallets put together up on stilts, and then you kind of put a piece of fabric around to kind of cover yourself up.
Yeah.
So you're hiding from the deer. You're usually standing or sitting, watching over a place where you know the deer are going to walk by. Yep. Those can be kind of sketchy. Duck blinds are another one, right?
Yes,
you ever been in a duck blind?
I have not been in, but I saw one the other day that had a full kitchenette.
Okay, well, this is not okay. These are not the duck blinds I'm thinking of. But these are all covered usually in reeds and grass. And then another one I've been in before is a goose blind. And the goose blind's in the ground.
Yeah.
And you have basically a big lid over you that's made out of corn husks, and when the geese come flying, you flap that thing open and you start taking your shots at them. But those are the most rudimentary kind.
Yes.
But there's, like you say, we can get some fancy.
Oh yeah,
we can get some fancy things now.
Yeah. People build almost little houses up in the trees.
That's right.
But I don't know if women or girls did that. Built clubhouses. I mean, like the closest thing I can think of are the she sheds now.
Yes.
Which are, I guess, gardening sheds or...
Well, I mean...
I don't really know what they are.
My aunt has a she shed.
What is it?
It is a shed. It's probably an 8 by 12 type. Maybe it might be 8 by 16 or 8 by 20. It's a pretty big shed, right? You would normally be able to, it has barn style doors where you'd normally be able to drive in your small lawn tractor, but no lawn tractors in the she shed, right? So it's got a real door. It's got real windows. It's got a real air conditioner.
Is it like a reading nook or something?
Window unit. And she's got a couple workbenches where she can do art, crafts.
Right.
She has a nice chair where she can sit down and read and get away from it. She has storage, really nice, intricate, delicate storage for all her brushes and things that require craft. So as she said, and I can't say the word.
She.
Yeah, it's easy for you to say.
Yeah.
A she shed. Yes, so a she shed is a real thing, kind of like our man caves, right?
Yeah.
We have Well, I don't have a man cave. Do you have a man cave?
No, but I did build a shed.
I feel like if you had a man cave, we'd be in there and not in the kitchen.
That's right.
Recording as we speak.
If I build a man cave at this point, it will probably be a studio.
A studio,
or at least partially a studio.
Right.
Sound studio.
Padded walls.
It'll become the actual Camel City studios.
That's right.
I did build the shed I have in the back, though, is a pallet shed.
Right. I remember when you told me when you started building that.
So it's completely built out of scrap.
Right. Is it, now, I haven't seen it lately. Is it all fully enclosed?
Well,
so pallets don't have walls, right?
Yeah.
Pallets are...
How did you
enclose
I purchased some siding, now that I say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I didn't side the back.
You didn't side the back. So why'd you side on the other side?
Just to keep from getting kicked out of the neighborhood. You can't see the back.
Oh, okay.
So I did the other sides were just for my neighbor's sake.
I got you.
Yeah.
All right.
So when it snows, it'll blow in a little snow in the back.
Yeah, we get a lot of snow here in North Carolina these days.
Yeah, no. So obviously when women do this, they do it much better than we do it.
I think so. Now, then we also talked about tiny houses.
I think that'd be the other equivalent, is that just upscale. That's kind of the upscale tobacco stick.
Yeah,
house.
yeah. It's the back. Yeah, right. Yeah. You have a loft in there.
Yeah.
Like you say, full kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that often they miss on the tiny house is the toilet situation.
Yeah, I don't think people think about that because most of them are moldering toilets or composting toilets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just not what you want to be living next to.
Yeah, you've used those and I've used those on the trail. The moldering toilet especially, where you throw in duff,
leaves and
stuff. That's
old sticks.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, right. And that's what some of these tiny houses use as their toilets. And I don't know.
People don't think about that.
I don't spend a lot of time. I had a friend rent an RV, and they realized you just don't want to use the bathroom in the RV because now you're in the RV with the bathroom.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think people think about like water and electricity and
those are good things.
Plumbing when you think about a small house or tiny house.
Those are good things.
Oh, I'm all for it.
It's the toilet. It's the hard thing to live close to.
Yeah. Because you kind of have that also, like when you're in the dorm too, where everything's in the same area.
Right.
So, well, I know it didn't sound right, but I think we have come to the end of this episode.
Well, before we close, we want to thank everyone for listening. And by the time we publish this particular podcast, we'll have, Cecil, 10,000 downloads.
I know.
10,000 downloads.
10,000. Thank you for each and every download, whether you listened or not.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you just kind of played it incessantly in the background, hey, we'll take that as a win.
That's right.
If this is your first time, if you're number 10,001, we thank you too. Hey, before we close, we want to thank everyone for listening. And at the time of we publish this particular podcast, we'll be at 10,000 downloads.
It's hard to believe.
10,000? Good grief.
That's a lot of downloads. So whether you listened or not.
Yeah, we just played in the background.
Yeah,
hey, we thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, if this is your first time and enjoyed the conversation, would you consider hitting the subscribe button? There's a little check mark on Apple Podcasts. That's how you subscribe.
Well, and 10,000 downloads, that fits our whole podcast. That doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right that we would have done something and now we've got 10,000 downloads.
That's right. Also, consider leaving us a review or giving us a rating.
So That Don't Sound Right is a production of TDSR Podcast in conjunction with Camel City Studios. I am your co-host and sound engineer, Cecil. Peter is your other host, and our web designer, our barista from time to time is Camille. Ella is in charge of our Instagram. Emily is in charge of our graphic design. Giorgio tests our merchandise. Brent is our brand ambassador. And as always, listener number one is Scott. So until next week, keep talking.
And stay curious.